Did you know that the UK is not just one island? It is a group of islands. And in fact, the British Isles contains even different isles to the UK. There's a lot to talk about. But in this episode of the English Right Now podcast, we're talking about islands. So welcome to this podcast. It is an English language learning podcast in which we teach you at least 10 pieces of vocabulary. We say at least because it's a real conversation with my dear friend Rob, and anything can happen. Hello, Rob.
It can, and it will. Good afternoon, Roy.
Good evening and good night. Hello, how are you today?
Very good, thank you. Very good. Ready to set sail off to some of our British islands.
Now, this topic that you actually selected. Before we get started, I will say, if you want to learn even more related to this subject, related to islands, check the link. Checking the link down below. There is more information for you to learn about this subject. But this subject is very close to my heart because not only do we both live in the same country, I live on an island within that country. So we don't live on the same landmass. I live on an island. I live on the Isle of Wight. Have you been to the Isle of Wight?
I have, yes. I went a lot as a kid. It's a good, fun sort of holiday island with lots to see and do, I believe. Is it still the same?
Yeah, there's so much to see and do. A lot of people who come here are surprised about the amount to do.
Yeah. What I remember about the Isle of Wight, but I think it's the same for many islands, in my opinion, is they're a bit old-fashioned because they're disconnected from the mainland, which is the island of Great Britain. Maybe they got slightly old-fashioned ideas or old-fashioned infrastructure even. Yeah.
I mean, there's a kind of joke that we are 20 years behind the mainland, but I don't think that's fair in any way, shape, or form. But I do stand by the idea that islands are different. I think that islands, they're slightly different. I mean, before we sort of get onto this idea, I mean, yes, there are. I mean, we've still got the same technology, we've still got the same everything. Some of the services, maybe the trains, but they've recently been modernized, so I can't really complain. In that sense, but there is this kind of idea that the islands are a bit behind, and I don't think it's fair. But I do think there is a different way of thinking. Now, before we move on, we need to talk about a question that we get asked all the time, because we've talked about the UK, we've talked about the British Isles, but there's a lot to sort of say. So, what is the UK? What is it?
The UK is made up of 4 nations, right? So we've got England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. That's the UK.
Yes. So, and that's actually a political term, the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. So the UK, as you say, 4 countries, and it includes all of the 4 countries' islands. So, for example, I'm from the Isle of Wight, and the Isle of Wight is part of the UK, but it's not part of Great Britain. That's the thing, because Great Britain is the main island, which includes the majority of England, Wales, and Scotland. So all of the islands in Scotland are not part of Great Britain. So it's a geographical term. So Great Britain is the main island. The UK is England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, and all the islands that belong to them. And then we also have the term the British Isles. And the British Isles is also a geographical term, which technically includes the island of Ireland. So the island of Ireland is the second biggest island within the kind of British Isles, and it contains both Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, which is a separate country, completely separate. And while technically they are part of the British Isles, they may not really appreciate being said that they're part of the British Isles. They're very much an independent country, the Republic of Ireland. So, and that kind of sums up a big question that we have there. But the British Isles, as we say, it's not an island, it's an archipelago. This is one of our key pieces of vocabulary. It's an archipelago. What would you say with archipelago? What is an archipelago?
Well, it's a collection of land masses or a collection of islands. So it's not just one. There are many.
Yeah, it's a huge selection of islands. And it's weird, isn't it? Because until you kind of talk on a world scale, I wouldn't say Great Britain. I wouldn't think of it as an island because I come from a smaller island, but it is an island. So Great Britain is an island, but the UK is an archipelago, as is the British Isles.
Mm.
So yeah, so that's put the world to rights there. But I find it really fascinating that the Isle of Wight is technically England. It's technically the UK, but it's not Britain because we're not connected to Great
Yes.
Britain.
But you don't need a passport to visit the Isle of Wight, do you?
No, not yet. No, you don't. This is a question. This is a kind of joke that a lot of people kind of sort of play. We play pranks on kind of the English coming down and say, "Oh yeah, but don't forget your passport." So if you're coming down from Kent, I'll go, "Get your passport ready."
Yeah.
But no, you don't need a passport to come here. We are still part of the UK.
Yeah. But there are, as you say, there are many, many islands. Isle of Wight is one example. And we've got
Yeah.
tiny little islands, islets, tiny old
Yes.
rocks that have names,
Yes.
but nobody lives on them, to quite big islands. So we've got the Isle of Wight, haven't we? I'm trying to think of some other examples. We've got the Channel Islands, which
Yep.
they've got a strange political connection, haven't they? They're a crown dependency.
Yes. Which is a whole nother story.
Yes. They're sort of
It's a-
semi-autonomous, but you don't need a passport to go and visit them.
No. So there's a couple of things pronunciation wise to talk about. Island has an S in it and it's silent, but we say island, but it's got an S in it. If we're talking about the Republic of Ireland, we use that sort of the diphthong I and a schwa, or even a triphthong. Some dictionaries may argue Ireland. So you've got island and Ireland, and also this word isle, like Isle of Wight, the Scilly Isles, the British Isles. ISLE is pronounced Isle, but it's more of a kind of name than it is an actual kind of geographical thing. It's the part of the name. It's a naming structure. We wouldn't say the Island of Wight. We'd say the Isle of Wight.
Yeah. And you mentioned the Scilly Isles. So they're a group of islands off the coast of Cornwall. Beautiful place. I've been there. I had to go once. I went by ship. It's about 2.5 hours to get there by ship. And another time I went by helicopter, which is very exciting. Got a helicopter there. There are apparently 200 islands there, but only 5 are inhabited, which means people live on them. Yeah.
So the rest would be classed as kind of islets, or maybe, but islet. I sort of checked out this term as well because I wanted to give a kind of it's a slight vague idea, but it's basically that it is a very small landmass, probably with no vegetation and uninhabited. So that's also a key piece of vocabulary. So islet is a very small island that nobody wants to go to. There's no point. And uninhabited is a key piece of vocabulary. It means nobody lives there.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah,
but the 5 islands that people do live on that are inhabited as opposed to uninhabited, they have beautiful white sandy beaches. It looks like the Caribbean. The climate's not the same.
Really?
Clear waters, white sand, beautiful plants and flowers, and it's a real escape. Yeah.
I've never been. Do you know the names of the islands, or is that?
Yes, do you want to know them?
I would love to know them.
The main one is St Mary's.
Okay.
Then you've got Fresco, Briar, St Martin's, and St Agnes.
Very nice. Good. I'm not going to test your knowledge on all of the Scottish, the Scottish islands, because there are a lot of Scottish islands. If you look at a map of the UK, it kind of falls into pieces at the top with like little islands and islets. But that's really good. I have never been. I'd love to go there. But the thing I will say, so people who live on islands are often referred to as islanders.
Yeah.
So here, like, somebody will go, but it's somebody usually who's born and grew up here. So people say, oh, are you an islander? Which means, were you born here? And I say, no, actually, I was born in Nottingham, but I consider myself an islander. But it's got this kind of idea that your roots, your family's roots, and all your, are all here. So islanders are people who live on islands, but it's also often used to refer to people who were born there. And we are cut off on the Isle of Wight. We're cut off from the mainland. This is another one. A couple of pieces of vocabulary. Cut off there means separate. We usually use cut off to mean far away, very distant, but we're not. We're about a few miles off the coast, but we're still cut off because there is no fixed link. There's no bridge, there's no tunnel, there's nothing. So we need ferries from the Isle of Wight to get to the mainland, which is the main land, another piece of vocabulary. You live on the mainland. How's life different over there?
Well, it's more accessible to
Yeah.
places, isn't it? So it's much easier to get everywhere because you don't have to get a ferry. Unless we want to go to Europe, of course, across to France, then we would have to get a ferry. But yeah, for the rest of the UK, I can drive everywhere or get a train without having to worry about a ferry. So it means I've got more choice of place to go, haven't I? I can
You do.
drive off to Scotland if I want to without having to think about the time and the cost of a ferry. I'm also wondering, Roy, living on an island, you might be cut off slightly from the mainland. Do you think your mentality is different? Do you have an insular mentality? You only think about what's
insular. I wouldn't say insular. So insular is this idea of like inward focus, not thinking about the rest of the world. I don't think that here we have an insular mentality, but I do think there is something what we will refer to as an island mentality, and an island mentality, in my opinion, I do see a difference between the mentality of certain islands. Islands, in my opinion, are different. I find people on islands are different to even the counties that they belong to. And, even you go to the Scottish Isles and they're going to be different to people in Edinburgh and things like this. Culturally, they're slightly different. In terms of the Isle of Wight, yes. So the Isle of Wight is maybe 60 miles all the way round, although it's parts of it are dropping into the sea. So we're getting less every year. 60 miles all the way around. It's 25 miles across and 15 miles north to south. And sometimes my wife says, "Oh, let's go to Ventnor," which from my house is maybe 10 miles, 12 miles. I'm like, all the way to Ventnor. All the way. 10 miles. It's nothing. But 10, maybe 12 miles. And I'm like, oh, all the way to Ventnor. Like it's like the longest thing. And then I sort of say, oh, that's the island mentality. It's the idea that even these short distances are a colossal change. But the roads are different as well. You're talking about infrastructure there. Some of the roads are very Victorian. There's nothing can be done. We have these country lanes, which are very thin, very, very narrow, sorry. And they are for two cars, and you're meant to drive at 60, and you can barely get one car down there. We have a lot of those roads. So actually, it does feel longer than 10 miles.
Yeah.
But that's what I would say about an island mentality.
Yeah, no motorway. I guess maybe the pace of life is slower because you're not in such a rush.
Slightly. I would definitely say there is a more relaxed attitude. There's also a kind of difference in terms of down here. I mean, it's changing. This is the thing they always say. They're always changing. Life's changing. The world's changing. But there is more kind of a feeling of security and safety. Because, for example, if anybody steals a car down here, all the police do is go and wait at the ferries because there's nowhere they can go.
Yes.
So it's things feel a bit different, a bit safer maybe. Yeah, people aren't rushing as much, but we still get traffic jams and stuff like that. But yeah, there's no long distance to go to. Nobody's got that far to go to. You keep driving that way, you're going to fall in the sea eventually.
I know. Sounds great, actually. I mean, personally, I love Ireland. I would love to live on an island. I like that idea of that sort of island mentality of belonging to a place that has a defined boundary. You've got the sea around it, so there's no escaping it. I also quite like the remoteness. And I was lucky enough to go on a holiday to the remote islands in Scotland, the Outer Hebrides, which are the most extreme islands. And that was a 5-hour ferry journey out to Barra. And then what we did with our car, we went up what we call island hopping.
Nice.
So we went from one island to another island to another island, and then back home from the most northerly island. So that was island hopping, which was good fun.
Yeah, you've used two pieces of great vocabulary there. Yeah, good. Well done. You good. Finished. See you later. So you did remote, which means remote is very cut off. It's got a slight feeling of maybe some people would think that's a bit negative, but it's detached. We had, we had remote working, which meant working away from the office. So it's kind of separate split. And you also used island hopping, as you said, moving from one island to island to island. We have quite a diverse. This is a key piece of vocabulary. I'm going to come in with my vocabulary. We have kind of a diverse, which means like a big range of different types of islands. There's quite rocky islands, there's small islets. Would you agree with that? I mean, the islands down south are very different to the north, and
yeah. So starting off with those ones in Scotland I talked about are very remote, very simple facilities. Not many people live there, but we have islands close to London. There's Canvey Island, for example, which is an island basically in the Thames estuary. It's a little bridge across a little river to get to it, and people still live there. There's lots of houses and shops and stuff like that. It just happens to be on a piece of land that is cut off from the mainland by a strip of water. So yeah, so that's a very very populated island, for example. So there's a whole range of islands. Yeah,
and we also have one island city. I don't know if you know this. Do you know our UK's only island city?
An island city. You've got me there. We're not talking about the Isle of Dogs, are we?
No, that's not even. Is that even an island? I don't know.
It's not really. Technically, that's not an island. I don't know why it was called the Isle of Dogs, except it's a bit of land where the river bends round and it's formed a bit of land, but it's not cut off, is it? So I don't understand the Isle of Dogs. That's in London. Go on then.
So yeah, I think as well. I've put my neck on the I put it on the line now, but I said it's the only UK's island city. I don't know if it's the only one, the only city, but it's definitely England's only island city. It's Portsmouth.
Ah, that is an
Portsmouth
island.
Is an island. Portsea Island. It's on the island of Portsea Island. So yeah, it's England's only island city, as far as I'm aware.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and I live very close to that. So when ironically enough, when I get a boat from the Isle of Wight to Portsmouth, I'm going from island to island. I'm island hopping, and then I get onto the mainland. But they've got fixed links. This is honestly a big topic on the Isle of Wight. I don't know if you're aware of this. It's a massive topic. We've been talking about it for hundreds of years, since the Victorian era, about getting a fixed link to the mainland. So it's a big topic. Some people want it, some people don't.
Yeah.
What would you think? What would you think is the?
I've been to places like the Faroe Islands, right out north of the UK, and they're separate, lots of separate islands. They've managed to join some of these islands together with an undersea tunnel, and so you can easily drive from one place to another. It makes life a lot easier, quicker. I would imagine if the Isle of Wight had a tunnel, you'd have more tourists coming in, which is good for business.
Yeah.
It means you can get to London and anywhere else much more quickly. But would it spoil the island? That's the thing. Would it change that island mentality?
That's what people wonder about. Because the first thoughts is, will crime go up? This is the negative thoughts. Will crime go up? What will happen to house prices? Will they go up? Will they go down? What will happen? Because at the moment, being cut off, it gives us a certain level of security in terms of, like I said, with the cars. If somebody steals a car, they can't get off, and it feels safer. And that's what people, I think, generally kind of worry about. On the other hand, you've got to say financially, economically, there could be a massive boom. Tourists, not just tourists, but workers being able to come here and commute. Whereas, when we used to commute up to London, it's suddenly you're adding an extra hour and a bit onto a journey by taking a ferry, which is something to consider. Not to mention the cost. It is expensive to take ferries.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a lot of things. Back in the Victorian era, they wanted to build trains, a train bridge, or a train tunnel. Sorry, from various points on the island. I think it would have been great.
Yeah.
But because it hasn't been done, I can't see it happening anytime soon.
Right.
It's a massive expenditure, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, some islands I know of are connected by what we call a causeway.
Yes.
So a permanent fixed link.
Yeah, and it's not quite a bridge. So a bridge is above the water. Tunnel is underneath the water or in the water. And a causeway is kind of built on the water. It's often made of stones. And it's like a kind of raised road just slightly above the water level. I mean, a causeway wouldn't work for us because we have a lot of boats and shipping.
Yeah.
So we would probably need a tunnel of everything out of all of it.
I've been to it's a place called Holy Island up in the north of England. That's connected by a causeway, but at high tide, so when the sea rises, it covers the road. So you have to know the tide times, otherwise you get cut off. And I have been to Holy Island, got to the island, had a look around, thought, let's go home now. Oh no, the tide's come in, the causeway is covered with seawater. Therefore, you have to wait until the tide goes out again.
And knowing my family, we'd end up stuck on this island for years probably, because we keep missing the tide, no doubt, and people would have to come search and rescue. My wife's with me now, she's smiling away, probably come out search and rescue, wondering what's happened to us. We just keep missing the tide. But yeah, it's different. So definitely, I'm going to say that islands do feel different. And I will say this: if you're in the UK, please do visit the Isle of Wight or visit one of our many islands that are off the coast of the main island. Visit the island of Ireland as well, which is also a fantastic place to visit. And it's a completely separate country down south, the Republic. Brilliant. But the islands in general, you could visit the Isle of Man as well, which is another island, which is also quite a separate entity. But yeah, I think it's a brilliant topic to talk about, and I definitely do feel slightly different to mainland England. I think definitely in mindset.
Okay, so it's true that no man is an island.
No, I don't think so. I don't float that well. But if you do want to learn more information about this subject, about islands, please do check out the link in the description below. There's much more you can learn from this subject. And of course, if you do have any suggestions of topics that we should talk about, please let us know as well. But for me today, I just want to say thank you very much. I'll see you later. Oh, there we go. Yeah, I had to get that one in.
Yeah, you stay on the Isle of Wight, Roy. Thank you.
With my jokes. Thanks very much. I'll see you next time. Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.